We're live. Hello, everyone. Hopefully you can see and hear me. Looks like it's working. Let's just check all the tech. This is exciting. Okay, well, let me just check the audio here. Just be a moment. Yes. Okay, success. Welcome to the live stream. This is the first time that I've ever done a live writing session on YouTube like this. So this is very exciting. If you're watching this on the replay, stick around. Welcome. Watch the whole session. This is going to be good. My name's Hunter. I'm a film writer, and I've been writing films for many years. I've been trying to do it since I was a very small child, but I've been doing it properly since about 2017. And my journey has taken me from having all sorts of imaginative ideas that I had no idea how to bring to life to being able to actually direct and produce my own films. And I'm also the founder of an independent production company called Breaking Jar Ltd, which is on this channel right now. That's where I'm streaming from. So yeah, we're based in the UK. We facilitate film and media productions, and we help to provide opportunities and training for other people that want to make their own films as well, to help more artists and more upcoming filmmakers to get into the industry. So you're very welcome on this stream. This is going to be relevant for anybody who has any interest in writing. If you have no experience at all, you're in the right place, because we're going to talk about some stuff that's applicable for you. And if you have some experience and you're trying to progress your career further, or maybe get your next project off the ground, then this will be perfect for you as well, because it's a great time to be able to reflect on some good writing practices and how to get more practical results as writers in terms of the work that we create and the results that that leads to in film. So it's going to be full of gems, hopefully, for everybody watching, anyone with an interest in writing. And I'm really pleased that you could join us. So I think I'll tell you a bit more about who I am first, just to give you some context, and then we'll get into it. So as I said, I'm a writer. I think writing was probably my first love. Before I even knew about films or that it was possible to make them, I just loved coming up with stories. And so even when I was a kid, even before I could read and write, I was just coming up with stories all the time. And thankfully, I had a family around me who were happy to help me to record those ideas. So I would share them with family members, and they would often write down my ideas for me so that I could have them recorded even when I wasn't able to do it myself. So that's sort of how my journey started. And then when I was a kid, I wanted to be an author, and I wanted to write my own novels, and that was how I wanted to tell stories. And then as I got older, I eventually discovered filmmaking, and I found that film is a much more kind of immersive medium, because it's not just the written word on the page. You've also got all of the visuals and the audio that goes with it. And in that, you have so much power to craft the whole vision of what you want the audience to see, because you're not just writing a story for them to then take their own interpretation of. You're actually giving them the entire narrative, the entire world, the whole thing constructed in one complete film, and then putting it in front of their eyes and ears to absorb. So you get to really kind of put your whole vision across. So I think that's why I love it so much, and why it's now become my career. So I'm a writer and a director, and I do various other things as well, like producing and acting in my own films too. So I'm really living the dream now, to be honest. I realized that the other day, like, this is all that I ever wanted to do, really. I'm doing it right now, which is amazing to be able to say. And yeah, it all started with writing, because it all started with these ideas, these visions of stories that I wanted to tell. So I want to talk about something specific today that's kind of actionable for each of you watching this, and something that's very important for me in all the writing that I do. Also, before I get into that, I want to just plug Darling, which is our most recent film. That's why I'm wearing the cap. So Darling is a short film that I wrote and directed, and it's just being completed, and it's going to be going to festivals very soon, which is exciting. And that's the most recent production from Breaking Jar, this company. And again, this is one that I wrote myself, and I've even got merch now. I'm wearing the hat. So this all started with me at this desk in my bedroom, and in other bedrooms when I was younger, and in other places when I was younger, just figuring out how to write my own scripts. And now it's evolved into this whole career and this whole company and this whole community of people telling meaningful stories through film. So it really does start with a pen and paper. So I've brought one of my favorite notebooks here. A lot of my story ideas are in here. And I've brought a pencil. Hopefully each of you have these in front of you as well, so you can write down any of your ideas. And yeah, as I said, I've got some stuff we're going to get into today specifically about writing. Before we do that, I would encourage you to join us every week at this time, because this is going to be the first of a weekly series, which I plan to do every Tuesday at 5:30 p.m. UK time. So obviously, if that changes, I guess no one will know because I'll just delete this video. But if you're watching this video in the future, that means that I was able to stick to it. So writing sessions every week, 5:30 p.m. UK. That's the plan going forward. 2 action points before we continue. Get a notepad, get a pen or a pencil, and make sure you're ready to record any notes and ideas that you have during this session. It's going to be a short one today, but I want to make sure that you get something useful out of it. Second thing, if you're watching this live, please put a comment in the chat. Just put an emoji or something so that I know you're there. And if you have any questions throughout the session, please ask, and then we can do some Q&A at the end. Or if you're watching this later, you can comment under the video and I'll respond to the comments whenever I see them. So please do interact as much as you like. Let us know that you're here and drop a comment just to show that you're watching. And if you have any questions, leave them there for me. Okay, let's get into the action points. So what I want to talk about specifically is an approach to writing your film or your TV show or whatever piece you're working on. And it is to write with production in mind. The reason I say this is because this is, I think, what sets you apart as a professional writer. And also, just in a more general sense, it's what makes everything possible for your dreams as a writer to actually come true and for your work to actually come to life. It becomes so much easier and so much quicker to get there when you're able to do it with this approach, which is to write your story with the production in mind from the beginning all the way through. So what I mean by this is when you're putting together the story, you're not just thinking in a vacuum of like, what would be a cool story to tell? What would be some cool characters? What could be some cool scenes? You're actually thinking, how is this going to be made? And what is that going to look like? So in terms of why I do this as a writer, I just want to give you a bit of background. As I said, I've been trying to come up with my own stories since I was a kid. And so when I was little, they were very abstract, they were very imaginative, and they were just things that I thought were cool. And so whether it was a sci-fi story or a fantasy or an adventure or a romance or a historical story, any genre, it was just stuff that I thought would be really awesome. And I could sit and I could picture every little detail of the scenes. And I was imagining like these chase scenes and fight scenes and all this crazy stuff. And I was writing it all down in my scripts. And I had absolutely no way of ever producing those films. And I didn't think I could ever be a filmmaker. And I didn't ever think that directing could be a career path for me. And it was not on the agenda at all. I thought I was going to be a banker or a lawyer or, you know, do some kind of real grown-up job that all the real grown-ups were doing. And making films was not on my radar at all. But I had so many ideas for them and I loved writing them. And so I would just write all my scripts. And I had absolutely no awareness of how those could actually be made or what it would even look like to do that. That was when I was younger, into my teenage years. That was when I was doing it as a hobby, when I was an amateur, and I didn't even think that it could be a real career option for me. Then, when I started doing it properly, everything changed. And the reason everything changed is because I wasn't just writing in a vacuum of stuff that I thought was cool. I was writing with production in mind of what if I actually could make this, what would that look like? And that doesn't mean you get limited to doing something that's like super low budget or really boring or really watered down. It just means you're looking at if somebody, if anybody, even if it's not you, like you can take yourself out of it, just think about if somebody made this film, how would they do it? What would that look like? So you're not just writing in a vacuum. Like I said, you're actually writing with production in mind from the start. So the way that changed for me is that I started to write scripts which were more like blueprints for projects that could actually be made by real people in real environments, with costumes, with props, with locations. And I could even think down to like the facial expressions and the bits of dialogue and the body language of like, how are these characters going to interact? Are they going to feel like real human beings? Is it going to feel compelling? And then that meant I was creating a blueprint for something much more tangible that could actually get produced. So it went from being just a vague dream of like, oh, wouldn't it be cool if someone made this film, to like, somebody could actually make this film. And then the next step for me, because I'm also a director, was to realize I could actually make this film. And that's when everything really changed. So even if you're not interested in directing and you just want to be a writer, but you want your stories to actually get made, you want somebody to actually produce the work that you're writing, it's so much better when you take it out of just being this vague thing and you actually start thinking all the way through from the first page, what would it actually look like for this to be made? How could this actually be made? And start thinking through those practicalities from day one as you're writing the script. So some of the elements of that, like I said earlier, it can be the locations, the setting that stuff takes place in, indoors, outdoors, what kind of spaces are they in, the stuff that happens, the action, the scenes, what's actually taking place in the story, the costumes, the props, the era, what time period is it set in. There are no like, you don't have to find a right or wrong answer. It's just there needs to be an answer to all of these things, because when your film actually gets made, it's not going to be this abstract, imaginative, emotional thing, this feeling that you had. It's going to be a real piece of media that actually gets produced in the physical universe. And so you may as well think through all of these things now. And the more clearly you figure them out in the script stage as a writer, the more of a fully rounded end result you're going to have in terms of the screenplay final draft, which somebody can then actually produce. Whether it's you doing it yourself, or a production company, or a studio, or a network, or somebody else that picks it up, or even if it were to be a massive Hollywood studio that paid you an enormous amount of money to buy your script so that they could go and make it, they would have a blueprint of what they're actually making, and they would be able to see the potential of how it works. So when you write your script like this, it can lead to such satisfying and fulfilling results, whether you're producing the film yourself or somebody else is. And I just highly recommend, as I said, this process of writing with production in mind rather than just writing in a vacuum. Another reason for this is that I think quite a lot of people who are just writing for the sake of writing because they love writing, which is totally fair enough, they end up creating something which then feels unattainable because they're just writing stuff that they think is entertaining or engaging or cool without any reference point of how it would be produced. And so then they end up kind of constructing, I don't know what to call it, like an expectation, perhaps a hope, a dream of what they imagine this project could be, and then overwhelmed by the journey of what it would take to get that produced. Whereas when you do it this way, you can be thinking very practically from step one. How am I going to do this? Or how is someone going to do this? So hopefully that makes sense to you as a principle of writing with production in mind. Even if you're purely a writer and you don't have any interest in directing or producing or being part of that, even if you just want to write the script and give it to someone else, the more fully formed and practical your vision can be as a writer, and the more tied to reality it can be, the better. And that's when you go from being an amateur who's doing it as a hobby just because you enjoy coming up with ideas, to being a professional who is creating actionable blueprints called screenplays, which can actually be made into films. So I hope that makes sense. That's the principle. And now I thought I'd give you a couple of examples of how I'm using this principle right now, as recently as this morning, in my own work as a writer. So before we continue, if you're watching this, I just want to reiterate This stream is happening on the Breaking Jar channel. My name's Hunter. I'm the founder of Breaking Jar, and we're an independent production company based in the UK. So if you are a writer, or you're interested in writing, or if you're interested in acting, directing, producing, being a camera operator, a costume designer, a composer, if you're interested at all in anything to do with the film space and you're looking for opportunities, please go to the link below this video. It's breakingjarcareers.com. So we're Breaking Jar Ltd, the production company, and we have a website for you, which is called breakingjarcareers.com, all one word. So go to breakingjarcareers.com, and on there you'll find a free questionnaire where you can let us know what kind of roles you're looking for, and then we can keep in touch with you as soon as we have anything relevant that's coming up that you might like to be involved with. So we do this because we know that film is one of the hardest, if not the hardest, industry to get into. It's really difficult to get started at the beginning, and we want to make it more accessible for people. And we also want to keep it fun and positive and inspiring and engaging. And so for that reason, we have this free questionnaire where you can come and read a bit about the company. And more importantly, you can let us know all about you, what you're interested in and what your goals are. Whether you're already in the film space, or you're trying to get into it, or you're interested in it, but you have no idea how to get in, please just go to the form, breakingjarcareers.com, and let us know what you're looking for and how we can help. So we'd love to help you out in any way we can. Please do go to the form. Great. Now, let's share a couple of examples of how I'm using this today, because I was literally doing this a few hours ago today. I'm going to talk about two things, locations and names. So, locations. I'm currently working on a series. I don't think I've said that publicly anywhere before. So there it is. Anybody who sees this stream is now aware. I'm working on a short series. It's a couple of years away in terms of the actual filming, but I have a plan for it. Right now, I don't even have a script. I only have ideas for the story and the characters and what happens in each episode. But today, I was on Google Maps looking at areas of the country that could work as filming locations for one particular setting in one of the episodes. The reason I'm doing that now, before I've even written a single word of the screenplay, is that it means if I can find a practical reference point of the type of location where we're going to film this, even if it's not the exact location, just the type of location, just to find that like something like this exists, then when I'm writing my script, I can tailor it to that. And so before, basically, to give you a little bit more information, the scene in the episode that I'm writing takes place in kind of like a sort of magical wilderness sort of area. Think sort of Narnia or The Hobbit, Lord of the Rings, somewhere with like hills and mountains and forests and a natural sort of British landscape. So I was thinking we could maybe shoot somewhere like the Scottish Highlands, and it could be sort of a mountainous, hilly sort of area. But then I was thinking, practically, almost everyone I know who is in film is in London. London is just by far the biggest filmmaking scene in the UK, and in one of the biggest in the world outside of America. It's huge. Like almost everybody in the Breaking Jar community is in London. There's just way more people there than anywhere else in terms of actors, crew, and all the people that you need to get a film made, or a series in this case. And so it's highly likely that the majority of the crew will end up being London-based. Although we could choose to shoot it anywhere, we could choose a different region and then just find a regional crew in that area. But just statistically speaking, if we want to get the best possible people, especially for casting, like if there are specific characters that we need to cast, and there are very specific types of actors that we need to portray those people authentically, then we're going to need the biggest pool of people to cast from so that we have the best chance of finding the right person, rather than being stuck in a small regional area where there might just not be as many people around. So our biggest number of people and our biggest number of options and the most activity that will be happening is always currently London. And so I thought, Scottish Highlands is a very long way away from London. Maybe I should look for somewhere further south. And so what I did today is I got on Google Maps and I started looking at it, and I started looking for areas within reach of London that have hilly, foresty, natural landscapes, so that maybe we don't have to go all the way up to Scotland. Maybe we can film in the south. And I found some really good options within about an hour on Google Maps. So the reason I did that is because when I come to write the story, I'm going to be thinking about not just like the action and the dialogue of what the people are doing, but also the world building, the aesthetic, the whole setting that it takes place in. Are they in a forest? Are they walking along a river? Are they up on the side of a mountain somewhere? Like, if you think about human behavior, we want these scenes to feel as authentic as possible, and we want the characters to feel like real human beings. So for that reason, I want them to be acting in a way that makes sense within the setting. And so if they are out on a blasted heath on a mountainside somewhere, then the whole experience for those characters is probably going to be quite different to if they're winding their way through a charming little forest somewhere in the south of England. It's a totally different aesthetic. And so before I even start trying to write the film and trying to piece order the series, apologies, before I start trying to write the episode and piecing together the specific chronology of scene 1, scene 2, scene 3, scene 4, they do this, then they go to this place. Before I start trying to piece it all together and make it make sense in a logical way, I just need to know what is even the context. Like, what am I even writing in? Like, where are these characters? And so I don't need to choose a specific location right now, because if I go too specific, that might cause some limitations later. If we're trying to get the film produced and we have certain options available to us, it might be good to be flexible and to just go with whatever we can get when it comes to the production. But if I just leave it completely open and flexible, then I have nothing to guide me as a writer. And so what I'm looking for is like categories and reference points, not so much specific places, but just general ideas. What type of environment does this episode take place in? What type of landscape will the characters probably be in? What type of environment? What type of aesthetic? And then what type of story am I telling within that setting? So that's one example, is thinking about locations, not having to get specific addresses or anything like that at this point, but just what is the context that you're writing in. This is a very good example of what I'm talking about today, which is writing with production in mind, rather than just writing in a vacuum of your imagination. So think, where will these humans, these actors, actually be, and how can they interact with their surroundings in a logical and authentic and natural way, rather than just, in my brain, it felt cool because I was imagining that scene from that other movie, and I thought, oh, we could just make it a bit like that, but I had no idea what I was actually creating. So now when I write, it's always anchored in the reality of production, even if I don't have all the specifics sorted. It's just giving me some guideposts, and that makes it a million times more achievable that my film, my series, my episode could actually get made. And that is what I want ultimately. So of course I'm going to do that. Try and make it as tied to reality as possible. So that's the first principle. That is the principle, is writing with production in mind. That was our first example, is thinking about locations, the setting of the story, and what the real world locations could be. And then I've got one more little example I'm going to share with you today. So, place names. I think very carefully about place names, and I was working on some the other day in my notebook here. Maybe I can give you a tiny sneak preview. Can I give you a sneak preview without any major spoilers? There we go, there we go. That's enough. I was working on names for this town. There are 5 episodes in the series. They each take place in one major location. So I thought it would be cool to basically name the first 4 episodes after the 4 locations. And then the 5th one is kind of a bit of a twist. And so it has a slightly different name, but it still fits with the theme. So I've named the first 3. Yeah, I've got names for all 3 of them. But there's a fourth location in episode 4 that I haven't named yet. So I've been brainstorming carefully about what should I call it. I've been looking at real world environments. I've been looking at real places. I've been on Google and on the maps and looking for real, towns and cities that I might name it after. But I've also been looking at the other 3 names that I already have for the first 3 towns. And I want it to be a nice companion to those names. I don't want it to clash. And the reason is I'm already thinking about the end product. When people are watching this series, imagine if it's on BBC iPlayer or Netflix or Amazon Prime or on our own website, any of these platforms, and someone logs in to watch it and they see the episode titles. It says Season 1, Episode 1, Episode 2, Episode 3, Episode 4, and it has the name of each episode. I've already got the name of Episode 1, Episode 2, and Episode 3. So I want Episode 4 to be like a distinct name that looks good alongside the other ones. So I came up with a name I really liked, but it was quite similar to the name in Episode 1. And then 2 and 3 are totally different. And so I thought, it's close enough that it looks like it's meant to be part of the same thing, but it's also totally different from the other ones, and they're not meant to be connected at all in the story. They're 4 totally different places. And so I thought, it doesn't really work. Like, imagine, let's use an analogy, something like color. If you've got a group of main characters and they all have different color, imagine like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, I don't know. You've got like red, orange, purple, and blue. And they're all green because they're turtles. So those colors all kind of complement green. So basically, you've got your 4 main characters, your 4 turtles. They're all green, and they each have an accent color: orange, red, purple, and blue. And the colors are distinct enough that you can see the difference. Now imagine if it was like orange, red, purple, and violet. And the purple and violet almost look the same. And in certain lighting, you can't even tell the difference, or you can get them mixed up or whatever. It would be confusing because it's like we've got these different color schemes for these 4 distinct turtles, and now we've got 2 that are almost the same. It would be confusing. So this is the stuff I think about, because as a writer, I know what I'm talking about because I came up with all these characters and I came up with all this material. So I know what I'm referring to. But when this is translated into a visual film or a series that people are actually watching, and then when it gets watered down even further into just little thumbnails and titles on a screen where somebody's looking at your series in the website where they're watching it in the streaming platform, if they see 2 similar names, what's that going to do for them? Are they going to be confused? Are they going to assume there's a connection when there actually isn't? Are they going to think this looks a bit weird? And I guess my biggest fear is, are they going to think this looks a bit amateur? Like, are they going to think this looks a bit unprofessional? Like, did somebody not put more thought into this? And that's the thing we never want to do, because as professionals, the biggest thing we can do is put in the time and the effort to do things properly, because we have the advantage of experience, wisdom, commitment to the craft, and we're aiming to do it properly and to do it well, which means we don't have to do things at a rush or make a mess of them. We can do them properly so that the audience receives it in a way that's really satisfying and coherent. And so when it comes to these names of these 4 towns in these 4 episodes of my series that I'm working on, I want each name to be great, to be pithy, catchy, memorable, and distinct from each other, so that we can basically build a fan base. This is my ultimate ambition, because I think big, because I don't want any caps. I don't want any ceilings. I don't want the series to get a bit successful and then drop off because people find it hard to remember the names or whatever. I want it to be memorable and distinct. So when I'm sitting here by myself at my desk in my bedroom with my notebook and my pencil, I'm thinking through all this stuff, because in a few years' time, when this is actually out there and audiences are actually watching it, I want it to have the best chance of success. So I'm thinking about these things now, even before I've started writing my script. So I want specific locations in mind, or types of locations where the story could be set, because those are the types of places where it could actually be filmed. I want distinct, memorable names for each of the episodes, because ultimately when an audience, a viewer is looking at this on a streaming platform, they're just seeing little names next to the titles. And so I want those names to do the job. And so before I even write the script, I need to figure this stuff out now. So hopefully that all makes sense. And that is why, as I've been saying today, I'm always thinking about writing with production in mind from day one, before I've even written the first word on the page. So that's all I have for you guys today. I hope that's been helpful. As I said, my name's Hunter Boydell. I'm a writer. I've been writing films for many years, and I'm currently working on a series. So stay tuned for that in a couple of years' time. But we're going to be back here every week, Tuesdays at 5:30 p.m. for a quick writing session. So if you're a writer yourself, do tune in to get some tips, or bring your own work along. Bring along your own notebook and do a bit of writing while you're here. It's a good chance to get some accountability and just be able to spend some time together. I know it's always hard to take time out of your busy week with all the other work and everything you've got going on to be able to actually do some writing. So this is a time where we can gather together and do that. And I'll be sharing some tips. And next week, if anybody's got any questions in the chat, then I'll be able to answer those live as well, so that I can actually help you out with your project. So do tune in again next week, Tuesday, 5:30 p.m. UK. We'll be here. And I look forward to seeing you then. So thank you, guys. Keep writing, keep working on your story. And finally, go to the link in the description, breakingjarcareers.com, to let us know what roles you're looking for in film, so that we can support you on your journey to get your story told. So thank you, guys. See you at the website, breakingjarcareers.com, and see you next week, Tuesday, 5:30 p.m.